We are fortunate to be living in the most peaceful, most prosperous, most progressive era in human history. That may surprise young people who are watching TV or looking at your phones, and it seems like only bad news comes through every day. But consider that it's been decades since the last war between major powers. More people live in democracies. We're wealthier and healthier and better educated, with a global economy that has lifted up more than 1 billion people from extreme poverty and created new middle classes from the Americas to Africa to Asia. So I've come here today to the heart of Europe to say that the United States and the entire world needs a strong and prosperous and democratic and united Europe. And perhaps you need an outsider, somebody who's not European, to remind you of the magnitude of what you have achieved. The progress that I described was made possible in large measure by ideals that originated on this continent in a great enlightenment and the founding of new republics. Of course, that progress didn't travel a straight line. In the last century, twice in just 30 years, the forces of empire and intolerance and extreme nationalism consumed this continent. And cities like this one were largely reduced to rubble. Tens of millions of men and women and children were killed. But from the ruins of the Second World War, our nation set out to remake the world, to build a new international order and the institutions to uphold it. A United Nations to prevent another world war and advance a more just and lasting peace. International financial institutions like a World Bank and an International Monetary Fund to promote prosperity for all peoples. A universal declaration of human rights to advance the inalienable rights of all members of the human family. And here in Europe, giants like Chancellor Adenauer set out to bind old adversaries through commerce and through trade. As Adenauer said in those early days, European unity was a dream of a few. It became a hope for the many. Today, it is a necessity for all of us. And having defended Europe's freedom in war, America stood with you every step of this journey. A Marshall Plan to rebuild, an airlift to save Berlin, a NATO alliance to defend our way of life. America's commitment to Europe was captured by a young American president, John F. Kennedy, when he stood in a free West Berlin and declared that freedom is indivisible, and when one man is enslaved, all are not free. With strength and resolve and the power of our ideals and a belief in a unified Europe, we didn't simply end the Cold War, freedom won. Germany was reunited. You welcomed new democracies into an even ever closer union. You may argue over whose football clubs are better, vote for different singers on Eurovision, but your accomplishment, more than 500 million people speaking 24 languages in 28 countries, 19 with a common currency, in one European Union, remains one of the greatest political and economic achievements of modern times. Our freedom, our quality of life remains the envy of the world. So much so that parents are willing to walk across deserts, cross the seas on makeshift rafts, risk everything in the hope of giving their children the blessings that you enjoy, blessings that you cannot take for granted. This continent in the 20th century was at constant war. People starved on this continent. Families were separated on this continent. And now people desperately want to come here precisely because of what you've created. You can't take that for granted. And today, more than ever, a strong, united Europe remains, as Adnar said, a necessity for all of us. It's a necessity for the United States because Europe's security and prosperity is inherently indivisible from our own. We can't cut ourselves off from you. Our economies are integrated. Our cultures are integrated. Our peoples are integrated. You saw the response of the American people to Paris and Brussels. It's because in our imaginations, this is our cities. And now as Europe confronts questions of immigration and religion and assimilation, I want you to remember that our countries are stronger, they are more secure and more successful when we welcome and integrate people of all backgrounds and faith and make them feel as one. And that includes our fellow citizens who are Muslim. Look, the sudden arrival of so many people from beyond our borders, especially when their cultures are very different, that can be daunting. We have immigration issues in the United States as well, along our southern border of the United States and from people arriving from all around the world who get a visa and decide they want to stay. And I know the politics of immigration and refugees is hard. It's hard everywhere, in every country. And just as a handful of neighborhoods shouldn't bear all the burden of refugee resettlement, neither should any one nation. All of us have to step up. All of us have to share this responsibility. That includes the United States. But even as we take steps that are required to ensure our security, even as we help Turkey and Greece cope with this influx in a way that is safe and humane, even as Chancellor Merkel and other European leaders work for an orderly immigration and resettlement process rather than a disorderly one, even as we all need to collectively do more to invest in the sustainable development and governance in those nations from which people are fleeing so that they can succeed and prosper in their own countries, and so that we can reduce the conflicts that cause so much of the refugee crisis around the world. Chancellor Merkel and others have eloquently reminded us that we cannot turn our backs on our fellow human beings who are here now and need our help now. So I say to you, the people of Europe, don't forget who you are. You are the heirs to a struggle for freedom. You're the Germans, the French, the Dutch, the Belgians, the Luxembourgers, the Italians, and yes, the British, who rose above old divisions and put Europe on the path to union. You're the Poles of solidarity and the Czechs and Slovaks who waged a velvet revolution. You're the Latvians and Lithuanians and Estonians who linked hands in a great human chain of freedom. You're the Hungarians and Austrians who cut through borders of barbed wire. And you're the Berliners who, on that November night, finally tore down that wall. You're the people of Madrid and London who faced down bombings and refused to give in to fear. And you are the Parisians who later this year plan to reopen the Bataclan. You're the people of Brussels, in a square of flowers and flags, including one Belgian who offered a message: we need more understanding, more dialogue, more humanity. That's who you are. United, together. You are Europe. United in diversity. Guided by the ideals that have lit the world, and stronger when you stand as one. As you go forward, you can be confident that your greatest ally and friend, the United States of America, stands with you, shoulder to shoulder, now and forever, because a united Europe, once the dream of a few, remains the hope of the many and a necessity for us all. Thank you very much. Thank you.